Hey guys, in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Gerber Stakeout Multitool. So this is a compact outdoor survival multi-tool by Gerber that retails for around $55. It features tools that are useful in setting up camp tasks including cooking and some bushcraft work, as well as putting away camp. Before we dive deeper into the review of the Gerber Stakeout Multi-Tool, I have to give a big shout out to my friends over at Huckberry for sending the tool my way. Huckberry is an online shop and journal that brings people the best new brands, gear, and stories to inspire you. Huckberry is a great fit for me since they have a great selection of clothing, footwear, as well as EDC gear like knife and multi-tools. They offer a number of quality exclusive house brands, as well as some of my favorite third-party brands like Leatherman and New Balance. If you'd like to check out what Huckberry has to offer, I've left an affiliate link down in the description. Let's start off the review with the standard size comparison up against some of my favorite multi-tools. Here it is up against the Leatherman Signal. This is Leatherman's outdoor survival multi-tool. As you can see, the Gerber Stakeout, of course, it not being a plier-based multi-tool, it's a lot thinner in size. Here it is up against the Leatherman Skeletal. That's a lightweight Leatherman tool, also great for outdoor work because of how light it is. Here it is up against the Leatherman Wave Plus, Leatherman's best seller. Here it is up against the Leatherman Free P2, my go-to EDC multi-tool. And next up, let's compare it against some Swiss Army knives. Here it is up against the Victorinox Huntsman, probably one of the best medium-sized Victorinox Swiss Army knives you can buy, and here it is up against the Victorinox Classic SD. As you can see, the Stakeout is more on par with the Huntsman. It's a lot bigger than a keychain sized multi-tool, and it's thinner than the plier-based Leatherman tools. And then here is the thickness versus the Huntsman, as well as the Free P2. While it is a bit smaller, it is still relatively thick in terms of the width. And next, let's throw it up against a ruler, and in terms of the width, it comes in at around 3/4 of an inch. And next, let's measure the sharpened blade length. In terms of the sharpened blade length alone, it comes in at around 2¼ of an inch, and then overall length with the blade open comes in at around 6½ inches. And lastly, we'll put it up against a scale. Comes in at 4 ounces, up against the Free P2, 7.8, the Wave Plus, 8.5, the Huntsman, 3.4, the Signal, 7.6, the Skeletal, 5.1, and lastly the Classic SD at 0.8 ounces. The first tool in the Gerber Stakeout would be the liner locking knife that is one-hand operable, both opening and closing. It's simply made out of stainless steel. There is no exact steel name for this. This is a $55 multi-tool that's made in China, so it's definitely not a super steel. Part of it is black, and then the main part of the blade is just bare stainless steel. Comes relatively sharp out of the box. It's not the sharpest blade I've gotten out of the box, but I feel like it's pretty good, and because it is a simple stainless, it's probably easy to reprofile. It's kind of in a Warncliffe shape, so it's great for utility tasks. And as I said, it's also one-hand operable for closing. It is on a liner lock, and it's actually the only tool on the multi-tool that is locking. Moving on towards the other side of the tool, we have a stake puller. It is in an interesting kind of finicky way to open and lock it. The hook part of the stake puller is around one of the main pivot screws, so you kind of have to pull the hook up and then pull it. I think that is a weird design, and then when you pull it all the way out, there is this little piece of metal that stops it, and then you can grip it like this and pull stakes out of your tent when you are breaking down your campsite or do other various tasks. You can also possibly like hold a pot over a fire without worry of getting your hand in the way of the flame. So this is a nice little alternative to carry a pot or whatever device you're using to cook food over a fire. And it's also great for carrying things that would possibly dig into your hand, like things attached to a string for long periods of time. You can simply hook it on the hook and carry it like that. I guess this tool technically does lock closed, but not open. It's basically a friction folder. You can easily do this. It's not like very slippery or anything, anything, but I guess it does technically lock close. You simply get it around to the pivot screw and then push up and then push, and then it's locked closed. The next tool is a pair of tweezers, which is nice for little detailed work as well as pulling splinters out of your hands or arms when you're doing camp work. And the tweezers are housed in this little slot at the top of the tool and has this nice plastic orange handle to make them easily visible and make it easy to pull in and out. The next tool is at the very top, and that is the carabiner slash bottle opener. The carabiner makes it easy to carry. You can simply clip it to the side of your bag or maybe even on a belt loop, and similar to Leatherman carabiners, the carabiner also doubles as a bottle opener. You simply go on top of the bottle cap and then pop it like so. And next up is a pair of spring action scissors. In terms of every tool that isn't the knife, you have to pretty much use two hands to open, and again, they are non-locking, they are slip joint, and as I said, the scissors are spring action. They're relatively thick and they work well. They're not as good as Leatherman or Victorinox scissors, but I think they're pretty good for the price, and I do like how the blades are relatively thick. And again, they are slip joint, so to put back the scissors, you simply press against them and then slide them back into place. The last tool on this side of the Stakeout is a little ferro rod striker. Unfortunately, unlike the Leatherman Signal, the Stakeout does not come with its own built-in ferro rod, so you need to have your own ferro rod in order to start fires. But this is a black piece of metal that does have some ridges that is kind of rough, not as rough as like a file, but if you do have your own ferro rod, you can use it to start fires. I personally wish the Stakeout would just come with a small little ferro rod like they did with the tweezers. I'm gonna use my Leatherman Signals ferro rod. I wish the striker was more jagged. It's not the best to strike a ferro rod. You're supposed to strike a ferro rod and throw sparks up against something flammable like paper or thin pieces of feather sticks. I really wish this striker was better. It's not the most reliable thing. There you go. You gotta get a real good angle to throw some sparks, and you will have to supply your own ferro rod. And moving on towards the other side of the tool, you do have two rulers. You have a like a 2.5 inch ruler on one side as well as a like 7 or 8 centimeter ruler on the other side. They're decent for doing some light measuring in a pinch. The last two tools on the Gerber Stakeout are a saw and an awl, and to get them you're gonna have to use your fingernails to pull either of these tabs out, and they are relatively stiff, so you really need to dig and pull hard. It does hurt a little when you're using your fingernails. For those of you with longer fingernails, be careful of breaking your fingernails when you're pulling them out. They are relatively stiff. I don't know if the camera can really show what I'm saying, but they feel relatively stiff, and then eventually they will not lock but get into that slip joint mechanism. The saw is relatively sharp. It's great for sawing smaller pieces of wood for starting a fire or maybe even some light bushcrafting tasks. And as I said, it is a slip joint mechanism, so you simply press against it and then slide it into place. But again, it is really stiff, so you really need to press hard into it. And then the next tool, the awl, this is by far the hardest tool to get out. I'm gonna try to do it on camera with no edits just to show you. See, it just slides out very stiffly and slowly, and the awl is great for some bushcrafting tasks. It's basically a manual drill. Basically, you'll stab this into like wood and then twist it with your hand, and unfortunately it does not come with a sewing eye like Leatherman and Victorinox, so if you want to thread something through it, you won't be able to do it with the Stakeout. The awl comes honestly pretty dull. The point is nice and sharp, but I felt way sharper awls on Victorinox multi-tools and Leatherman multi-tools. And as you can tell on the awl, I did lube this up to try to get it so that pulling in and out these two tools would be a lot smoother, but despite using some KPL, they are still relatively stiff when opening and closing them, which I think is a pretty big letdown. And now that's a good transition into what I really don't like about this tool, and that's the fact that despite the decent tool set, I feel like it just needs some polishing. I feel like it's a good, not great design. I feel like the tool set is good, the form factor is good as well. I do think Victorinox and Leatherman have some better designs in terms of form factor as well. I just really don't like how unpolished this tool is. Like, I know Gerber's Main USA knives and tools are pretty rock solid. But when it comes to their imported models, they're usually inconsistent in terms of quality and execution. I think the execution is okay, but the quality definitely has a lot to be desired. I have played with this multi-tool for a few days now. I understand some Leatherman and Victorinox tools do take some time to break in, but really it only takes like few uses of each tool to break them in. I've been playing around with this tool for days now, and they're still relatively stiff. I added the KPL and the tools are still really stiff to pull out, and I just don't really like how unpolished the tool is. I feel like the tool set is pretty solid for an outdoor / survival multi-tool. The form factor is pretty decent. The ferro rod striker could definitely be a bit more rough to easily throw sparks. I was kind of struggling, as I showed you, and I wish maybe on the other side they added a ferro rod like the tweezer with an orange tab to pull out, and you wouldn't have to supply your own ferro rod. It has like half of what you need to start a fire. As the striker, you just need the actual ferro rod. I think they could have easily added that in some way. Even if it were to make the tool a bit thicker, it is still relatively thick despite it being a smaller multi-tool. And I'm probably just repeating myself now, but I think the tool is good. I think the tool set is solid. It could use a few additions, but really what kills it for me is the fact that out of the box, and even with messing around with it for a few days, most of the tools are still relatively stiff despite adding lube and playing with them. And even at this price point, there are a lot higher quality tools out there from Leatherman and Victorinox, especially with similar tool sets that right out of the box, they just need a little bit of breaking in, or maybe no breaking in at all, and have better designed tools like a hole in the awl. When using all of the tools, once they are all open, it feels okay in hand. You don't really get any horrible hot spots. It might not seem like that way. And the ferro striker at the end, when gripping the knife, there are no hot spots, so I can definitely give it that. I do enjoy that the knife is one-hand operable, and using the other tools once you actually get them open are pretty good as well. I just wish that they were all one-hand operable. I know this tool is on the lower end in terms of price point, but one-hand operability is definitely a must for me, and that's why I go for more expensive multi-tools. And that is the Gerber Stakeout multi-tool. What do you guys think of the Stakeout? What do you guys think could be improved? I'd definitely like to know down in the comments. So that's gonna do it for this video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Follow me on my socials. If you really love the review, please consider leaving a super thanks in the tip jar below, and thanks for watching.